Greetings and welcome to the 7th episode of Morrowind Modding Highlights, where we take just a brief look at some of the best mods that get released each week, without going into a whole lot of details. And, just as a reminder, this series is now on a Tuesday-Thursday schedule, so, the next episode will be just on Thursday. But anyway, today we're just taking a look at the best mods of June 8th through 17th, and there were about 35 mods released during that time period, the top 10 of which we'll just be taking a look at here today. But as always, downlinks and timestamps are just down below, so let's begin with our first highlight, which this time around is Articus 6 House Daggeth HD Nightmare Retexture 2K by Articus, and that is just quite a long name. But anyway, this is quite obviously a graphics replacer that replaces the textures for the 6 House assets, as you can see here. And this is just another really beautiful replacer from Articus, though beautiful might not be the right word to use here with the 6 House. Maybe a better, term would be creepy, or unsettling, or just, a bit disturbing. Those might be, better terms to use in relation to the 6th House, but either way, these are just some really nice looking, replaces here. And this just covers things like the statues, pillars, platforms, candles, banners, spellhammers, and bells of the 6th House, giving them new, just 2048 HD resolution textures here. And this is just a really nice looking replacer that, does kind of fit in with the vanilla game. It shouldn't clash with anything else that you might have. So if you're looking to, just upgrade the graphics in your game just a bit here, you might want to, check this one out. But moving on, our next highlight is Quick Equip by Merlord. Unlike our last mod, this isn't a graphics mod, but rather a gameplay mod, and more specifically, a convenience mod. Basically, this adds a new hotkey that you can use to just automatically equip any item in your inventory by just, clicking on that item with the hotkey and just automatically equipping it. This means that you don't have to drag and drop items onto your character's portrait, which is what you had to do in the vanilla game. Now you can just click on the icon, the item you want, and just hold down the hotkey to automatically equip it, and that goes for just everything. Weapons, armor, clothing, potions, books, just everything. So this is just a major time saver. And, just a huge convenience mod. I would highly recommend just checking it out if you haven't already. And the author does have a video showcase of this mod in action that you'll find just down below here. But next up we have Sepulchral Curses by IronPV. And this is basically just a reimagining and a reimplementation of the mod Disturb the Dead by Zapera. That mod made tomb raiding just a bit more difficult, as, when you loot a urn or a chest, there was a slight chance that you could, disturb the dead, and get attacked by angry spirits, like, a Bone Walker. And this mod, takes that, concept and basically, re-implements it using MWC. So now, there is a chance that when looting a urn or a chest again, you might just, activate a skeleton, or a ancestral ghost, or, again, a Bone Walker. And because this uses MWC, it should just be compatible with most other mods out there, and also includes support for the Terry Built mainland. So if you're a fan of the original mod, or just like the concept here, you might just want to check this mod out. But going on, our next highlight is Outrun, Mage's Guild expansion by Indify. And quite obviously, with the name here, this is just a minor expansion and overhaul for the Mages Guild in Aldrun, adding some new detailing and clutter, like the potted plants that we just saw, as well as some new additions like this library that you can just, see in the corner here. There's also some new bedrooms, like this one for the Chapter Master, and a bunk room for the rank and file, so, everyone has a place to sleep, which, in the vanilla game, they kinda didn't. But anyway, there's also a handful of new flavor text documents, not to mention a few new NPCs that have just a bit of new dialogue, and this dialogue and, these documents just, help to add a sense of life to this chapter of the Mages Guild. And anyway, there's also a new kitchen here, and overall, this is just a really nice, looking overhaul and expansion for the Mages Guild in Aldrun. But just moving on to our next highlight, we have a Sneaky Strike by Vitruvian Guar. And now this is basically a gameplay mod that overhauls the sneak attack system in Morrowind. You may recall that in the base game, when you sneak up on an opponent, you could get a critical strike and a 4 times damage multiplier, and that is regardless of what kind of weapon you use. So if you used a dagger, or an axe, or a blunt weapon, you'd still get that 4 times damage multiplier. And what this mod does is make it so that the weapon you use actually determines what kind of multiplier you get. So if you're using an assassin's weapon like a short blade or a dagger, you'll now get a 8 times damage multiplier. But if you're using an axe or a claymore, you might only get a 3 times damage multiplier, and if you're using a bow, you might get a 6 times or a 7 times multiplier. And this just makes it so that when you're using stealth to, assassinate your foes, the type of weapon that you use just actually matters here. And this is just a pretty neat mod to check out if, you're playing a thief or an assassin type character. Next up though, we're highlighting a ruined Ancestral Tombs overhaul by Tel Shadow. This is actually just a fairly large mod that just covers all 90 plus Ancestral Tombs on Vardenfell, just adding things like new clutter, detailing, and other just atmospheric additions, not to mention a ton of creatures and, undead opponents for you to fight through. This is primarily a detailing and, overhaul mod, so mainly what this, adds is just a lot of ruined elements, so, like cobwebs and rocks and, things of that nature to make these tombs just feel a little more ancient and, of course, atmospheric. And it really is just a rather impressive mod because it does cover just every tomb in the game here. But, that does mean that it will conflict with other mods that, expand and overhaul these tombs, so that is something to keep in mind, because, this mod doesn't actually, expand any of these tombs, it's just a detailing overhaul mod. But that's not to say that it isn't worth checking out, because, again, it covers all 90 plus tombs on Morrowind, and I don't think any other, mods do that, so, if you want more detailed and cluttered tombs to check out here, this is just a great mod to look into. But let's not dilly-dally, instead going on to our next highlight. We're taking a look at Magicka-based skill progression MWC Lua Edition by JCS. Another just rather simple gameplay mod. This one changes the way that Magicka-based skills like Restoration, Mysticism, Conjuration, Destruction, and whatnot are leveled up here. In Vanilla Morrowind, you gained experience for just each spell cast, regardless of the strength of that spell, meaning you could, level up your skills faster by casting really weak spells just a ton of times, But with this mod, instead, the amount of experience you'll get is based on just how strong the spell is and how much magicka it takes to cast. Some more advanced spells will just, net you more experience towards a skill increase. And this is just a more logical take on leveling up your magical abilities here. Though it is somewhat difficult to, showcase, but anyway, that's really all this mod does. It's a great mod for magic users, and, it's definitely worth checking out here and adding to your game. But for our next highlight, we're taking a look at weather chances adjusted by Necrolesian. And unlike the name here implies, this mod allows you to change the weather settings for each region in the game here, adjusting the chances of each type of weather using the sliders in the mod config menu to just set the chance for each type of weather here. So for example, if you want a 20% chance of a blizzard in the Bitter Coast and only a 5% chance of rain, you can do that using the mod config here. And you can also just set it to have a 100% chance of a blizzard if you so desire. So you could just have a never-ending blizzard in Sedanin, just if you want to. And you could also, set this up so that there's a 20% chance of a blight storm in the Bitter Coast, or the Ascane Isles, or just wherever. And this just gives you a lot of, customization here. And it's a pretty neat mod to just, take a look at here. But going on though, we're next going to be taking a look at Buoyant Lord Vivec by Stripes. A very, very tiny mod. This basically just adds a script to Lord Vivec, so he'll stay levitating instead of what he did in the vanilla game, which was, levitate for a couple seconds and then touch his feet to the ground, then levitate again. Now he'll just, stay in the air, levitating in that, sort of, meditation-like posture, instead of just constantly bobbing up and down, up and down. And that's all this mod does. It's a very minor mod that doesn't really do anything too much. It's just, kind of a cosmetic addition, but, if you're bothered by how Vivec bobbed up and down before, this might be a nice mod to look into. But finally, for our last highlight today, we have Sathiel Mercenary Armor by Ruffin Vangar and Ashtar. This is actually a graphics replacer for the original Sathiel Mercenary Equipment mod by Ashtar, replacing the original models and textures from that 2016 mod of more detailed meshes and higher resolution textures, using intelligent textures as a base here. So if you're a fan of the original mod, or just like the style of the new armor here, this replacer just improves upon the original mod, adding a lot more details to this armor set, so your characters will just look even better wearing it out on their adventures here. But that's it for today. As always, down links are just down below. So thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you all next time.